evening. Welcome into the Strike Zone podcast. I am Joe Hunk. Obviously, you see me every single day with 3HL. Now, tonight is going to be a little bit unique. Okay, I'm not even going to try to lie to you one bit. We were actually going to wait until the Red Sox and Rays game wrapped up, but I'm going to be straight with you. I understand that playoff baseball goes a little bit longer, and we're not talking about 3-hour baseball games. So even with this game starting at 7 o'clock, it would have been a minute. It would have been a minute before this the Red Sox and Rays game is over with. And quite frankly, Tampa Bay's already up 4-0, and it's sad that I truly feel like that game is already over. It's really kind of horrific to really think about when you look at the way the playoffs are. But with the bomb that the Rays just hit, that game is over. That game is 100% over. Now, as always, you can always hop in on the Strike Zone podcast, get those comments in as we go throughout the night tonight, as we are getting ready to preview the Braves and the Brewers. And look, if you were listening to 3HL earlier today, our man Brent, who is a humongous Astros fan, he had to do the entire show with the Astros-White Sox game going on, and it was hilarious to watch him during the breaks. He was giving me updates as the game was going along, mainly because I had a prop bet on Jose Altuve. I actually thought that Jose Altuve would get 2 hits. You need to be quiet. And so I had a prop bet. Jose Altuve was going to get 2 hits, and that didn't happen. He got 1 hit. He was up in the bottom of the 8th inning, and then he hit like a little dribbler to third base. But that game was going on. The Astros win that game, beating the White Sox, and quite frankly, that was the White Sox' best opportunity to beat the Houston Astros. Lance Lynn has been absolutely amazing this entire season, and the Astros just rolled through him in this game. Now, as we get going, obviously you can comment no matter where you are watching, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever it is. We will see those comments as we go along throughout the night. Capso Sick is already watching on Twitch. We appreciate that. He says, as a Boston fan, that's not what you want to hear. No, I know it's not what you want to hear, but the thing about what's happening is you started to see, and I know that Capsule Sick, you are watching us and listening to us as you're also watching the Red Sox game, and the Rays and the way that they have been pitching this game so far. You saw that the Red Sox had to start kind of making some changes throughout the game, and that's not something that you really enjoy, but at the same time that you knew that you had to do. And that is what McClanahan was pitching. Shane McClanahan, if you don't know anything about him, he actually didn't even start the season off with the Rays. He actually broke camp, and they put him in the minor league system. And then he got brought up a little bit later on in this. and so seeing him come into this, if you've played MLB The Show, you know about his card and how dominant his card was on MLB The Show. Yeah, he's that dominant in real life. And the fact that they threw that to the guy that wasn't even on the 25-man roster at the beginning of the season is absolutely amazing. But that's exactly what the Tampa Bay Rays do. Tampa Bay, with this, and I know that if you've listened to the Strike Zone podcast and you've ever heard me talk about the Tampa Bay Rays, this organization is amazing. Now, I will preface this: if you do not know, I worked in the Tampa Bay Rays minor league system for about a good 4 years, working with the Montgomery Biscuits, which was their AA affiliate. And so a lot of these players that are kind of spread throughout Major League Baseball now, I saw play in Montgomery. Jake Cronenworth is one of those. If you've ever been fooled by the Lau and Lows of the world, then you're not the only ones. There was a point in time where there were two lows batting in the lineup for the Biscuits, and there was also a Lau, and they were all spelled the exact same way, and it was extremely confusing to every single person that is there. Now, also, you do have Thursday Night Football going on right now. I'm going to be straight up with you. I also had a prop bet on that game as well. The LA Rams would win, as well as 44 points would be scored in the game. Last time I checked, it was 9-7 in the third. Don't think that's going to happen. All right, Yorkie has hopped in talking about the Montgomery Biscuits. See, now look, I'm always going to have some love for the Biscuits just because of my history there and working there. But I'm telling you, this Rays organization is absolutely brilliant with how they do this with their pitchers and the way that they always use their pitching staffs and bring these pitchers up. It is very, very rare for the Tampa Bay Rays to rush a pitcher through their minor league system. Sadly, the last one that I can think of was Brent Honeywell. I honestly don't know how many innings he's pitched in the last 2 years, but I know that he had Tommy John surgery. He only pitched maybe 2 games for the Biscuits before he actually got called up to the Durham Bulls in AAA, and then I think he was only there for a few months, and then he got called up to the Major League team, and then that is where he then hurt his elbow and he had to have Tommy John surgery. It is very rare for them to rush pitchers up. The thing about them also bringing pitchers up is when they bring them up, they're ready. And you saw that today. Now there's a cadence that will happen for pitchers. Some pitchers like to take their time. Think of when Giannis was shooting free throws, and you would have the visiting team or the home team, if they were on the road, would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of that sort of stuff until he actually threw it. Well, the way that McClanahan has actually been is the opposite. He steps his foot on the rubber and he's ready to go. So through part of this game, you started seeing Red Sox pit batters actually start to step out of the batter's box, adjust their gloves, maybe stretch a little bit, do something to try to get him off of his rhythm, hoping that he would make a mistake. It didn't work, but the strategy was extremely sound. So that is what you were seeing if you've been watching some baseball today. The Houston Astros, and look, as somebody that hated the trash can and the beeper and all this other stuff, listen, that team is legit. And I know that you shouldn't have to say that about a team that was as good as this team was all season long, but that is the truth for them. And you saw it today. They were not messing around with the White Sox. The White Sox people have actually kind of picked some of them to actually be in the minor leagues. I mean, I should say to be in the ALCS. There are some people that have picked the White Sox to be in the World Series against the Atlanta Braves. White Sox Braves World Series, don't really see that one happening, but it could possibly make you a bunch of money no matter where you're betting. Say possibly on FanDuel. Use the promo code Hunk, by the way. I just want to let you know that. But let's get to these comments as they're going along. Kyle is watching the Rays and Red Sox right now as we are talking. He says the Rays are crushing my hopes for my Red Sox. Sad part is watching the Biscuits for all these years is why I knew this would happen. Look, and that's exactly what is the sad thing about this whenever you're going through the minor league systems, especially if you are somewhere in Tennessee or Alabama. And I know that I have a lot of friends in the state of Alabama, so that's the reason why the Biscuits and what's happening is being talked about. But you can also turn this around, and you can also know, and you actually see the reason why the Milwaukee Brewers are as good as they have been for the last few years. If you're in the state of Tennessee and you've went to a bunch of Nashville Sounds games, because a lot of those players that are playing against the Braves tomorrow starting at 3:37 p.m. Central Time have played at some point in time in Nashville. And so this is kind of a unique series for the city of Nashville, because you have, if you're a Nashville Sounds fan, just like if you're a Biscuits fan or Barons fan, or there's not too many actual true Trash Panda fans, but you also want to see the major league team do well because you've seen a lot of these players go up through the minor league system. Look, And if you're a Biscuits fan right now and you are watching this, about Willy Adames. And Willy Adames is somebody that got traded to Milwaukee just so that Wander Franco could actually make that leap up from the Durham Bulls to the Tampa Bay Rays. And he has been absolutely amazing for them so far this season. So, there's a lot of things in this whenever you're talking about a lot of people that are watching this today and listening to it. If you follow us on the Apple Podcast, give us that 5-star review. I'd really appreciate that. And if you're watching it there or listening to it on the Apple Podcast and you are in Tennessee or Alabama, you know about a lot of these players because of you've went and watched them play AA or AAA baseball. And that's the hard thing about when he gets to this point is you have your fandom, if you are a Braves fan, and then you also have what you've seen over the course of the last few years. And that's that's probably some of the reason why I always watch the Rays and I want them to do so well, because just like Yorkie and some of the other Biscuits fans that are on here right now, we've seen a lot of these players come through Montgomery and they played for the Biscuits. And if you are a Biscuits fan, you know how good they are. By the way, Montgomery came in second in what they're now calling AA South. They lost to the Mississippi Braves in the championship game. You can pay a lot of attention to that this year when you're looking at your minor league teams, only because there were no September call-ups. There were no real expansions from 25 to 40 player rosters in the major leagues. So a lot of times what will happen is if you're a minor league team, you're, the Sounds, or if you're the Biscuits or Barons or one of those teams, or even the Mississippi Braves, you will have players on your roster. But then when the playoffs start, players from your AAA club get called up to the major leagues, like the Sounds getting called up to the Brewers. And the way that they have to fill those is they go to their AA team and they fill that for the AAA affiliate if the AAA affiliate is in the playoffs. Now, if they're not in the playoffs, then they will try to fill up the AA with some players from single A ball, depending on what the situation is. And so that is kind of what sucks about this a lot of times is you follow this team through the minor leagues, and then the moment you get to the playoffs, your players are getting called up. Well, that didn't really happen this year. So these teams, these minor league teams that you're seeing, like the Mississippi Braves, as well as the Montgomery Biscuits, those teams were, for the most part, kept intact throughout the entire postseason because of the way minor league baseball was set up this year with the late start due to COVID. All right, let's continue with some of these comments that we got going on. Kyle says, he goes, I have the Astros beating the Rays to play the Dodgers after they beat the Braves for a 7-game World Series. What does your playoff bracket look like? So I didn't actually fill out a true bracket like you would for the NCAA tournament, but what I have happening is I do have the Dodgers beating the Giants. I do have the Braves beating the Milwaukee Brewers, and then I have the Dodgers beating the Braves in the NLCS again for the Dodgers to represent the NL from that side. As far as the AL is concerned, I actually have it flipped. I have the Rays beating the Astros in the ALCS, and I have the Rays beating the Dodgers for the World Series. This Rays team is very, very good, and Kevin Cash is very brilliant with what he does a lot of times, and I really think that what this Rays team is going to do, as crazy as it sounds, they are going to have an amazing atmosphere at Tropicana Stadium, because if you're watching this game or you had it on as we're talking right now, Tampa fans actually showed up to Tropicana. They took off the tarps on the upper deck, which have been covered the entire season, and they have filled those out tonight for these games. And look, if you're wondering, like, oh, now you show up, you also got to think about this. Rays fans didn't get to actually see the way that this team played in the playoffs last year because of COVID, because everything, moved out to San Diego and Los Angeles and Arlington and Houston and those areas. So Rays fans didn't get to come and see their team, and then their team makes a World Series run. And look, Kevin Cash has made 99 amazing decisions, and the one bad decision he made last year is taking Blake Snell out of that ballgame. We all know that. Blake Snell knows that, and they ended up losing to the Dodgers. That's the reason why they didn't make it to the World Series, or they didn't make it to the championship. Capso Sick says Brady goes to Tampa and makes every team there better. Look, hey, that it to an extent, he just actually put a shed of light on the Tampa area, because the Lightning won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago before Brady even came there. And the Rays were doing the exact same thing. They had one of the best records in baseball. They made it to the playoffs there. And now this is kind of where everybody's kind of paying attention to some of these teams and what's happening because Brady is in Tampa. That's not a lie about Brady going to Tampa, but it's more about the fact that the light has now been shined on that city and their teams that have been so good. And honestly, the Tampa area is kind of strange because they don't really claim the Orlando Magic as their basketball team, even though Tampa really doesn't have that. But people also forget during COVID, the Toronto Raptors were actually the Tampa Bay Rays team, and that was coming off of a championship. So that was kind of something else that was happening in Tampa last year. All right. And Yorkie says he's got Braves and Rays in the World Series. Look, and we're going to get into this here in just a few seconds with this Braves team. This Braves team is set up very well to get past the Brewers, especially with Devin Williams no longer on that team and Devin Williams no longer in that clubhouse. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll fill you in with that coming up here in just a little bit. Capsule Sick also says, what is the chance Freddie leaves if the Braves don't make a deep run this postseason? I don't really think they're connected. And the reason being is, look, just like the rest of us, and we talked about this on the Strike Zone podcast a couple of months ago, as a matter of fact, is we didn't even think this Braves team was going to finish the season above 500. You don't have Soroka. You lost Ozuna because he's a moron. And then you also have what happened to Acuna Jr. in Miami, and with him tearing his ACL. And Alex Anthopoulos put together an amazing trade deadline deal and arguably didn't really get rid of any players that were going to benefit the Braves over the course of the next 2 or 3 seasons anyway. So, it was a really good trade deadline for him. But I think Freddie has made it very well known that he wants to stay in Atlanta. And I think that that's also part of the deal, the reason why so many people haven't really made a big deal about him still being a free agent. Outside of what we talked about at the trade deadline of if the Braves are waving the white flag, do they trade him to get prospects and, knowing, hey, look, this is what we're going to offer you, or we're going to offer you a deal in the offseason to bring you back. We want you to know that the moment that we are out of the playoffs and you are out of the playoffs, we're going to start talking about contract. Instead, Braves stayed in it because, let's be honest, the Mets are horrible. And now you've got yourself a nice little baseball team that actually has a solid 3-pitcher rotation. You have one of the best bullpens in the playoffs right now, if according to CBS Sports, which they actually ranked all of the bullpen staffs, and the Braves came in 3rd with that, and the Brewers were actually 5th. Out of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, out of the 8 teams. And so the Braves do have one of the best bullpens going in this, because when it comes to the Braves, and obviously if you're listening to this and you're watching at this or listening to this while you're also watching the playoffs, you've seen the ups and downs. There's a reason why when somebody like, we'll say, we will use Will Smith, when Will Smith comes in to pitch, every single Braves fan is terrified because you've seen him choke. Well, at the same time, this is a whole different scenario. And the playoffs are an entirely different animal. Managers have to manage differently. Players have to play differently. Lineups are going to look different. And the whole reason behind this, and that's the reason why whenever you're watching this, you have to understand that now there is, for the most part, no let's set something up for later on once you get to game 3 and 4 and 5 in the NLDS and the ALDS. It's a now situation. That's why Kevin Cash, just a little while ago, as we're talking, the Rays and Red Sox are going on right now. Tampa's actually up 4-0 still in the bottom of the 7th inning. But Kevin Cash was getting his closer ready. And he has a different philosophy than what a lot of people do when it comes to using your bullpen. And so what he actually likes to do is he's like, look, your job as the closer is to put out a fire. Whether it's at the end of the game, whether it's in the 5th inning, 6th inning, or 7th inning, we are going to put that fire out with you because you are our guy. You are our fire extinguisher. So he uses his closer a little bit differently periodically because it's more about getting out of a jam, getting out of a situation. Say right now, for instance, if the Rays were to go back in the 8th inning right now and the bases were to get loaded for the Red Sox at the top of the 8th inning, he would potentially bring his closer in then, even if there's no outs, to get out of that jam because that's way more important than trying to save him for the 9th inning. And that's just kind of the way that Kevin Cash actually thinks. Let's go to Twitter and let's go through some of these questions right now. Brett actually hops in. BB, one of our digital people at 1045 The Zone, says, hashtag Hunk robbed on Wednesday. If you know, you know. Yeah, we're not going to talk about what happened last night, okay? I want you to look directly into my eyes right now. We're not going to talk about what happened to Hunk's Titans to go to 1-4 because of some stupid referees that didn't place the ball right. And then when we sent it to New York, they still made the wrong call. Yeah, you can go back on my Twitter feed and you can see the video on that. But he then also adds that he believes that the Braves are going to win. Is the question what you say? He says Braves in 5. Does that mean Braves in 5 on the NLDS taking the Brewers to the limit and winning it in 5, or does that mean winning the World Series in 5? Let me know. He then asks the question of, would you rather have Will Smith or Luke Jackson, though? Would have to think Smith. Look, I would take Will Smith. It's going to be nerve-wracking, but I promise you, in that situation, I want him there in 2021 in the MLB playoffs. Luke Jackson in 2021 has not had to be in those situations as much as Will Smith has. Game on the line, bottom of the 9th, top of the 9th, and you've got to get this save so that you get this win. There's a mentality about it, and this is not the time to change it up unless you've been doing this throughout the season. It's just not. Now, there's going to be certain circumstances. You're in the 7th game of the World Series, and you have somebody like, say, a Charlie Morton, who is your starter. Your bullpen has been kind of struggling, and you need Charlie Morton to come in and eat up some innings between the 7th, 8th, and 9th to try to get you to the 9th inning with the lead in Game 7. That's going to be a little bit different. Cap's so sick. We just read that one. Let's go back. Let's go down here. Yorkie says that wasn't a first down. Well, Yorkie, that's fine. You can be wrong. It was a first down. Everybody knows that was a first down. Again, this is a Strike Zone podcast, but we can talk about what happened yesterday all we want. I don't want to, but this is what it is. Look, I even showed this, and this was not an exaggeration. I know we're getting sidetracked. I even showed the video to Titans people that are on the staff for the Tennessee Titans. And before they even heard the result, they said, oh, that's a first down. I even went through the situation. Have you ever seen those situations? Like, say, let's use baseball, for instance. Bottom of the 7th inning. You've got a 3-run lead. You got a lefty and a righty coming up, but you've got all lefties coming up. Everybody remember the little big league situation when they wanted to challenge the little 13-year-old to see if he actually knew situations in baseball? And they went through the entire thing. 7th inning, runners on second. Your best guy with speed's on first base. All of this, and they went through the situations. And he said, what do you do? And he went through it. I did the exact same things with Tennessee Titans personnel. And I said, okay, here was the situation. 2:28 to go in the ball game. Titans are down by 4. I'm on the Jaguars 35-yard line. I just done a pass out to the flat to A.J. Brown. He got it to within 4th and 1. And what do you do in that situation? They said, every single one of them said the same thing. Run the king. Directly up the middle, run the king. It was a first down. Kyle says, Jesus, Franco is so freaking good, and the Rays moved 2 more young shortstops just as good. Or they have 2 more shortstops just as good. And again, Willie Adames was one of those players that the Rays had that got them and was actually in the way for Wander Franco to even get moved up to the major leagues, and that's the reason why they had to trade him to the Brewers. What he's talking about is the fact that Franco just hit one down the left field line for a double to put him and Rosarina at 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th inning. So that's exactly what Kyle's talking about. Now, when it comes to the Brewers, and I've said this for the last couple of days and through the last couple of streams, as a matter of fact, there's a few things that I'm looking at that are in the Braves' favor when it comes to the NLDS game that they're going to start tomorrow at 3:37. And trust me, it's going to be very hard for me not to be emotionally involved in this. But the biggest thing that I've talked about when it comes to the Brewers or when it comes to any team is the fact that you do not want to go up against a hot team in the playoffs. Look, the Red Sox, who beat the Yankees, had actually not been playing that great going into that. They almost lost out on that second wild card spot. They became the first because of their season series with the Yankees. But they almost lost their wild card spot to the Mariners and to the Blue Jays because they blew their lead. Same thing was happening for the Yankees. Neither one of those teams were in a position to actually be able to be in this scenario of being a hot team going into the playoffs. The same thing's kind of happening with the Dodgers and the Cardinals. That's kind of the reason why I thought the Cardinals might beat the Dodgers last night, because of how fire the Cardinals had been in the month of September. I think they'd won 17 of 20 games. They'd won 11 in a row, all on the road, and they were just coming into the playoffs, a team on fire. Now you get Dodgers and Giants. It's a lot of emotion. Game 1 is going to be in San Francisco. That game's going to be happening tomorrow night. It's going to be your late night game. So drink a Red Bull, do whatever I do. And I have those little purple amino drinks that I always drink. Well, you can see those on our stream. But when it comes to the Braves, this is such a good situation for them. For the past 5 or 6 seasons that they've made it into the playoffs, going all the way back to 2012, there'd only been maybe one time that they had went up against a team that was not on a hot streak coming into the playoffs. Marlins last year were actually had lost 7 of their last 10 games going into the playoffs last year. The Dodgers a couple of seasons ago, I think it was the Braves' first season whenever they played the Dodgers. I believe that was the Acuna Grand Slam game when the Dodgers 1-4 against them. They were about 500 coming into that series with the Braves. The Brewers, on the other hand, their last 10 games, they are 6-4. I should say 4-6. They've actually lost 4 of their last 5 games because they finished the season off against the Dodgers and against the Cardinals. They swept the Mets. Again, it's the Mets. Before that, on their 10th game, 10 games ago, September 23rd, they lost to the Cardinals. So in the course of their last 10 games, they had lost 3 or 4 to the Cardinals, got swept by the Dodgers, and the only team that they really did well against is the Mets. The Braves, on the other hand, they've won 8 of 10. They lost to the Mets on October 1st because the night before they clinched against the Phillies and they put all of their scrubs in just to give their starters a rest for a day before getting into it. The game before that they had lost, they were 9-1 going into that game against the Phillies the night that the Braves clinched on September 30th. And that only one loss that they lost was a game that they blew against Arizona. Rest of the time, they were on a hot streak. Now, they are also arguably the worst team in the NL making it into the playoffs. But hey, they've been on fire. Now, the big thing about this when it comes to somebody like Corbin Burns, this guy against the Braves has not been doing well. And the batter, oddly enough, that has actually had the most success against Corbin Burns so far in his career has been Dansby Swanson. He's got a slugging percentage of 2.500. Yeah, that's really good if slugging percentage wise. He's got a home run. He's got multiple doubles off of him. He has done well. There is not a single Braves batter that has faced Corbin Burns more than 9 times. The only guy that's actually faced him more than 9 times was Jock Peterson. And, well, that was because Corbin Burns and Jock Peterson had seen each other a little bit more. But as far as the Braves are concerned, you've got probably 4 or 5 guys that haven't really ever seen him. I don't think Travis d'Arnaud's ever faced Corbin Burns. Duvall has faced him about 7 times. He's got a slugging percentage of about 286 against him. But then you have Austin Riley, who's got a slugging percentage of 1.833 against Corbin Burns. Jock Peterson has a slugging percentage of 1.333 against Corbin Burns. The Braves players that are going to be going up against Burns in this game, this is a tremendous matchup for them. And then you also look into somebody that's now going to be moving in to that not closer role, but setup man role for the Brewers, which is going to be Hunter Strickland. Yeah, the same guy that Bryce Harper threw his helmet at when he was a pitcher for the Giants. Ozzie Albies has 1,000 slugging percentage against him. Wilson Contreras has a 2.500 slugging percentage against him. Freeman, 2,000 slugging percentage against him. Jock Peterson, 1,250 slugging percentage against him. Riley, 2,000 slugging percentage against him. If this game gets late and Hunter Strickland is the one that the Brewers are going to be bringing into this game, the Braves are setting up very well to take advantage of this Brewers bullpen, which at times has been part of the best thing. The thing that the Braves are going to have to do is they're going to have to get into this bullpen because the Brewers have the best starting pitching in baseball, arguably outside of the Dodgers. As far as a full 162 is concerned, you could say the Milwaukee Brewers pitching staff has actually been better than what the LA Dodgers have. That's the reason why the LA Dodgers added Max Scherzer. Now, all of this is being said, Brewers, they're doing pretty well against Charlie Morton, who's going to be getting the start for the Braves tomorrow in that as well. When you've got somebody like Lorenzo Cain that's batting 1,000 with his slugging percentage, Urias already has 1,000 slugging percentage against him as well. Christian Yelich, who has seen probably Charlie Morton probably the most. He's got an 800 slugging percentage against him. Navarez has about a 900 slugging percentage against Charlie Morton. So the Brewers offense has actually had a lot of success against Charlie Morton, but in the playoffs, a lot of these players are not going to be ready for the situation that's going to be coming into hand. This is the reason why I give this to the Braves for game 1. The main reason I'm giving it to the Braves for game 1 is going to be because, one, this is why you signed Charlie Morton to begin with, is to start game 1 of the NLDS, to start game 1 of the NLCS, to start game 1 of the World Series, because he's been there so much between the Houston Astros and the Tampa Bay Rays. That's why I could see Charlie Morton getting the start over Corbin Burns and being way more successful. All right, let's go back to our comments. As we're going, Brad, what's up, Hunk? How's it going, bro? Brad also says, boo-hoo Cardinals. Look, I hate the Cardinals with a passion. I felt dirty last night having to cheer for the Cardinals just because I wanted the Dodgers out of the playoffs because the Dodgers are the best team in professional baseball right now. I still think the Rays are going to get the better part of them. The thing that's going to actually be a benefit to the Giants, Clayton Kershaw is not going to be pitching for the Dodgers. He's done for the season. That was somebody that actually did very well against the Rays last year, and I'm looking like this is already happening towards the World Series. But it's also something that I saw that Clayton Kershaw also had a great NLCS against the Braves as well. That's another kind of notch for the Braves. And let's not act like the Braves would not be excited to see Max Scherzer, because the Braves have actually lit Max Scherzer up when he was a Washington National. That's another thing that could actually be part of and could benefit the Braves if they get into an NLCS with the Dodgers. Darrington also says, okay, I'm still upset about my Yankees. Sorry, bro. Get a better pitching staff. That's been the problem the entire time. That's been the problem for the Yankees going all the way back to the past decade, is the fact that they do not focus enough on their pitching, not because they don't get great players. Not Clayton Kershaw, but Garrett Cole was one of the best pitchers in the American League the entire year. Heck, he may even still win the Cy Young even without the Spider Tech stuff. The problem that you're seeing is Aroldis Chapman. He struggled after all the Spider Tech stuff started coming out. You started having somebody like Zach Britton that didn't have as great of a season as he normally would. The bullpen was not at Adam Ottavino. I mean, that's another one. That's the whole purpose, is what the Yankees do is they spend way too much money on offense and they do not focus on your pitching staff. Was it Soriano? How many games did he actually pitch for the Yankees this year? Those types of games, and this is the reason why the Yankees struggle. And he says our hitting was hot. No, your hitting was amazing. Your offense was great. The problem is, and that's kind of another one of those, like, whenever you're looking at the bylaws for the playoffs, if you're facing a hot team and your team is winning so many and you're having to do X, Y, and Z and all this is so good, this is the reason why you go with this team. The problem is that there's always kind of this indention to this, is when you play the team that you play in your division, which is the reason why the Red Sox are getting beat 5-0 right now, is because the Tampa Bay Rays have played them so many times, more than just 6 times, and they know how to play them. That's where the problem is going to lie. Trust me, the Rays were ecstatic that the Yankees got knocked out of this because of how good that offense was. And honestly, Stanton right now is reevaluating his career with New York, because he came to New York because he thought that he was going to be able to get a championship there, something he was not going to be able to get with the Marlins. And when he got traded there, he thought that he was in heaven. It has not worked out for him. And Darrington said, do the Braves actually have potential to make a real run? Honestly, yes. They have a potential because of the matchup that they have with the Brewers. The Brewers do not have a very good offense so far in professional baseball. The reason that this team has done so well is because of how good their pitching has been all year long. Braves, on the other hand, now that unlike having, just Acuna, which sounds so weird to say, you just had Acuna. But now with Acuna out, Soler is hitting the way that he is, which he's been amazing for the Braves. You add him in. Adam Duvall is hitting amazing. Now you're starting to add these players, which honestly, if you go back to the very beginning of the season and you look at the way that the Braves were set up, it was, hey, if we get through, 4, 5, and 6, okay, 7, 8, don't really know if they're going to be any good or not. Now that's not really the case, especially with the way Ozzy Albies has been hitting from both the left and the right side. You have Duvall in. Freddie Freeman's now got a little bit more help, so he's seeing some more pitches. I do think they're going to get them. Do I think they can beat the Dodgers? Yeah, no, I don't believe they can beat the Dodgers. Now, without Kershaw, if the Braves can get to Max Scherzer, beat him, they're going to have to beat him multiple times. 2, possibly 3 times to make it to the World Series. And then they may be going up against a team like the Rays, who is absolutely tremendous. No, I don't think the Braves can win a championship this season. I think that going into the offseason, they're going to have to obviously improve the bullpen just a little bit more. You're going to get some guys back that you want. Sean Newcomb isn't there. You're going to also have to turn it around. You're going to have to add probably another starting pitcher. And you may get Soroka back, which means you get 2 starting pitchers. You add that with Max Fried. You add that with Charlie Morton. Now you're starting to talk about a really good pitching rotation and get somebody else to close out the games. And let's go back here. Let's see. But since Rivera retired, our mindset changed. Oh, no, it absolutely did, because you never had to worry about Rivera. Mariano was coming in and he was getting 3 outs. Chapman, he has a wall. Rivera, he could possibly go 6 outs. Chapman cannot go 6 outs. He is a 3-out pitcher. If you make him go 4 and 5, that velo drops significantly. then you start talking about players are not just looking for the fastball, and that's why the slider is not so as deadly as it normally is. CC was a disappointment for me. I never really saw what everybody saw in CC Sabathia. I just never did. Maybe I would get a little bit more appreciation of some stuff with him if I read his book and kind of learned some more about him, and maybe I'm just missing something. I thought he was better with the Indians than what he was with the Yankees, but I just never really saw it. Yorkie says Giants are going to make the Dodgers their female dog, I believe is what that means. No, I don't disagree with you. I honestly, that's where this whole excerpt comes into is except when you play a team in your division, which happens in the playoffs. You'll see that a lot of times in this LCS series because you're not going to see it in the division series. But with the way that the Giants and the Dodgers season ended up with both of them having 100-something games, when I honestly could see the World Series champion coming out of that NLDS. I think that if you have the opportunity, stay up and watch these games. I know that they're not going to be starting super late, but stay up and watch this Giants versus Dodgers series. It's going to be extremely fun to watch. And honestly, I kind of wish that the Braves would get Kevin Gausman back, but that's just me on there. And Darrington says, yes, light moments. All right, as we wrap up, Tampa Bay's most likely going to be taking that game one against the Red Sox 5-0. That's going to be one for the Rays. The Astros are already up 1-0 as well. Tomorrow is arguably, for me, the best day in baseball, and especially the best day when it comes to playoff baseball, because tomorrow you have all 4 series going. White Sox and Astros are starting at 1 o'clock. Braves are going at 3:30. Red Sox and Rays are going to be going at 6 o'clock. Dodgers and Giants are going at 8:30. And you are talking about a day full of baseball that is going to be extremely fun. You heard my picks. I think the Rays are going to take that series. I think the Astros are going to take their series. I think the Braves are going to beat the Brewers. I honestly do think the Dodgers are going to beat the Giants, but there's a team that can get the Dodgers out. It will be San Francisco because of how this season series is gone. But outside of that, I think you're going to be seeing a Rays-Dodgers World Series, and I think the Rays are going to win their first championships. Hey, look at that. Right as we're about to go, Yorkie says, are you watching? They're about to blow a shutout. Bases are loaded. Did I seriously not just bring in this scenario just a little while ago about the Rays? Now, if you just missed it, Xavier Bogaerts hit a ball. I honestly am shocked it didn't hit the roof of Tropicana Field. It fell into short center, and now the bases are loaded. Kiermaier, who is like the Gold Glove winner for like the last decade, didn't catch it. And now you only have 1 out, and the Red Sox are going to be having the bases loaded, down by 5, top of the 8th inning, and you can kind of see the Rays are going. But you know what? We've done this in the past. The whole watch-along thing, we've had both ways of how this is going. I'm calling it a night. I'm going to go watch this. I'm going to go finish that. Hit me back up on social media. Do not bring up the crap that happened on Wednesday night. It was a first down. I was going to beat the Jaguars. Let's not act like I wasn't. I was moving the ball down the field with ease. No turnovers, except for the punt at the end of the half, which I just basically threw up a Hail Mary just to see if somebody would catch it. But make sure that you always follow us. Give us that review on Apple Podcast, please. It would be really beneficial. It really would. Talk to you later. Enjoy the playoffs. Tomorrow, I will be a nervous wreck on 3HL with Game 1 of the Braves and Brewers. We will see you next Thursday for another Strike Zone podcast. Have a good one.